Today we're diving into a powerful lunation being the full moon in Aries that's exact on October 6th at 14 degrees of Aries. And this is a fiery, bold, passionate, and initiating energy. And, it's not just about like exciting happenings or, bold endings. Because with Mars, the ruler of this full moon, transiting through Scorpio, it's kind of like there's an intense emotional undercurrent to this full moon. So let's talk about how this energy is showing up and how you can best work with it. And if you're curious about what to expect for this full moon or all the other astrology going on, then be sure to like and subscribe down below so you can stay updated on what's going on in the sky. And also, if you're new here, hi, I'm Mackenzie, aka Astromac, and I'm a professional astrologer. And I talk all things astrology on this channel, and I also have a Patreon where when you join, you get access to a group Discord, and you'll get access to my weekly cosmic musings, and I also offer a bunch of different astrology readings, so if you're interested in any of that, then I'll link all of that down below. So now let's pull up the chart for this full moon and dive right in. So as always, full moons are times of illumination and culmination and times of release. And it's kind of like this spotlight moment in the lunation cycle where it's like something has come full circle. So full moons are when past manifestations are coming to fruition. And so this would be a good time to reflect back on that new moon in Aries back on March 29th, that was actually a solar eclipse, and kind of reflect on what kinds of seeds and intentions and manifestations you were setting during that time, and reflecting on how those things are manifesting in your life now. So look back at old texts, or even in your photos, or if you keep a journal, looking back at that, and if you keep like a manifestation journal, then looking back at those and just kind of reflecting and seeing how those things are coming to fruition now. Full moons are also times when things get revealed to us, or things get illuminated in our lives, or brought to our awareness, or it's when we get a little more clarity as well. And then of course, full moons also tend to be associated with those times of heightened sensitivity and heightened emotions, and so they're associated with emotional and energetic releases. And through that release is when we're letting go of those things that no longer serve us. And so full moons can also be associated with endings, but with endings come new beginnings. And so in Aries, this illumination is pointing us towards themes of independence and identity and bravery and self-assertion. Aries is bold and self-directive, and it approaches things with this me first energy. And so it's pretty courageous, and it can be pretty spontaneous, and it's kind of pretty direct as well, but at times it can be a little impulsive maybe. But it's just a very initiatory sign. Aries is the very first sign of the zodiac, and so it's got this great leadership quality to it. And if you watched my Aries 101 video, then you'll remember that I talked about how Aries is that spark of life. It's that first sign of life, and it's that primal instinct and drive to just move forward and take action and be yourself. And its key phrase is I am. So under this full moon, it's like we're being asked where in your life are you being called to step more fully into yourself? Or where are you being called to be more of your authentic self? Or where do you need to take the lead more? Or where is fear or hesitation holding you back from saying this is who I am and this is what I want? Because this is a full moon that is all about stepping into your power and taking actions that align with your authentic self. Because Aries energy is passionate, and it really helps us to step into our most authentic personal power. And so really reflect on those things that excite you and ignite that feeling of passion, because those are clues helping to kind of guide you back to your authentic self. This full moon also invites us to embrace independence and really confront those areas of life where we may be holding ourselves back. And so under this full moon, this would be a great time to actually release those things that are holding you back from, being your authentic self. And so release the self-sabotaging behaviors or actions, and release the imposter syndrome, and release those things that are negatively impacting your self-esteem and your sense of self. And recognize that none of those things are you. You're not your self-sabotaging behaviors, and you're not the imposter that you think that you are. And then as you're releasing those things, reflecting on what you want to replace those things with. Instead of the imposter syndrome? Do you want to replace that with like complete self-acceptance and confidence, or, you know, whatever it might be? Just kind of reflect on the person that you're wanting to grow into and reflect on how that version of yourself shows up in the world. And so be open to new potential awarenesses being illuminated today, because this is happening in Aries, and so it's illuminating this Aries energy to really like go out and do the thing and just be yourself. Now, this full moon is not aspecting any other planet, and so it's kind of like this raw, pure Aries full moon energy, but what it's doing is it's really exposing this like polarity and this Aries-Libra axis, which is the axis of like me versus we, and self versus other, and individuality versus relationship or partnership. And when I say versus, I don't mean like they're fighting off against each other. It's rather like finding a balance between these things. And so for this like Aries Libra axis, it's kind of like this forever dance between finding the balance between me versus we and self versus other. And so it's about finding that right balance between these seemingly opposing energies and really finding a way to kind of meet somewhere in the middle. Because if we're leaning like too far into like the Aries energy, you know, that's where it becomes like this hyper independence where we isolate ourselves and we don't let anyone in and we don't let anyone help us out even when we might need it. Then it's like conversely, if we're leaning too far into the Libra side of things and the Libra energy, that's where we might become codependent, where we don't know like who we are without the other. And so when we can meet somewhere like in the middle, you know, that's where we come to this like interdependence kind of energy, where each person is able to kind of maintain their sense of self and their independence and, you know, retain their autonomy while also still being able to, you know, collaborate and work together and grow together through this sense of mutuality and equal give and take. Now, the ruler of this full moon is Mars, and Mars is currently traveling through Scorpio, which is a very powerful placement for Mars. So this takes all of that like fiery, excitable Aries energy and runs it through this lens of like depth and transformation and emotional intensity. Mars is that planet of action and drive and motivation and how we go after those things that we want. And so in Scorpio, it's kind of like, you know, nothing is surface level in Scorpio. You know, Mars in Scorpio really cuts deep. And so this is asking us to really dig beneath the surface and, you know, uncover what's hidden and face our shadows and really claim our power from within. And I think it's interesting, we're in the middle of Libra season, and Libra energy is that energy of like understanding ourselves through others or understanding ourselves through our relationships. And so I think Libra energy can sometimes act as a mirror. And a lot of times what we do as humans is we tend to project our shadows onto other people. So this is a really good time to pay attention to your triggers and pay attention to how you may be projecting right now, like what you're thinking and feeling about other people in your life, because more than likely there's some amount of projection happening. And try not to judge yourself if you do kind of find yourself projecting, because, you know, it's a very normal thing that we do as humans, because our shadow is just like that part of ourselves that we're not willing to face or really claim as part of ourselves. And so that's why we project it onto other people. And it's like those parts of ourselves that we tend to not really like. Like if you find yourself saying over and over again, like, oh, that person is so selfish, all they do is talk about themselves, like maybe actually that's something that you do, you know, something like that. That's just an example. Or if somebody is like triggering you for some reason, maybe reflect on why they're triggering you. Is it like they're triggering something that is a part of yourself? Because again, remember that this full moon is illuminating this Aries energy, and it's going to be bringing new awarenesses about ourselves. And, you know, sometimes that's not always comfortable or something that we want to see, you know? So when you can notice like, oh yeah, actually that is something that is a part of me, and that's something that is within me, and you can learn to accept that about yourself. That helps you to really accept even those shadowy parts of yourself, and it really helps you to be a more fully integrated human being. When you can accept all parts of yourself, like even the parts of yourself that you don't always like, you know, that's when you really are able to call your power back to you and step into your power. And that's where like true alchemy and transformation that's associated with Scorpio is really like making itself known. And so all this to say, this combination with the full moon in Aries, it's not just about like stepping into your authenticity, but it's about doing so from this space of like emotional truth. And so this is a time to really get to know yourself and come to a new level of self-understanding and really get clear on like who you are and what you want and what you desire, and don't be afraid to take some action and go after the thing that you want the most. So you might feel this full moon again kind of pushing you to face your shadow and accept all parts of yourself, or you might be feeling that urge to kind of take action on something that might have been brewing under the surface for a while. Like maybe there's an ending that needs to happen in your life that you've been really like resisting and digging in your heels, or maybe there's like a truth that you haven't been willing to accept quite yet. Or maybe there's a step forward that you've been needing to take, but you've been afraid because of like how scary or how vulnerable it feels. This lunation is really saying like if you want to rise and you want to keep moving forward, then you've got to go through some amount of transformation. And if you want any amount of freedom, then you have to really face those things and move through those things that have been keeping you stuck. And there's another layer to this, like diving beneath the surface, intense and transformational energy, because during this full moon, Mercury will have just entered Scorpio, and it immediately forms a square with the planet Pluto, which rules over Scorpio. So this brings like an extra layer of intensity to the day, where it's like our thinking might just be like a little more probing or intense, or we might be having more like intense conversations, where there could be things that have been hidden are coming to light, or like secrets being revealed, or all that fun stuff. But it's also a powerful time to really take some time to like be introspective and reflect and be honest with yourself about what it is that you truly want, and really own it and share your deeper desires and your deeper truth. And so, like I said, sometimes it can indicate like secrets coming to light, but more than likely what's going to happen is it's going to be like your hidden desires are just going to become more clear to you. And with this new level of clarity, it's like you're going to be able to recognize what is authentic to you and release the rest. Like you might have a come to Jesus moment with yourself, where it's like you're finally able to be honest with yourself. And when you're able to be honest with yourself, then you're able to be honest with others. And so this could bring like difficult or more intense conversations, but it will bring like a deeper awareness and understanding of what's working in your life and what is no longer working. And so with this honesty comes a certain level of vulnerability. And so we might be feeling a little more like self-protective under this lunation, kind of wanting to close ourselves off, but I really encourage you to lean into the sensitivity and lean deeper into vulnerability and be honest with yourself and others, instead of, hiding your true thoughts and feelings. Because when we can be vulnerable with ourselves and with other people, that's what helps build those deeper and stronger and better relationships with other people as well as with ourselves. So don't be afraid to go deep during this lunation, because it is a very sensitive full moon, so don't be surprised if you find yourself feeling all the feels. But I really encourage you to try and reflect and kind of observe yourself rather than emotionally reacting. And if you do find yourself emotionally reacting, maybe ask yourself why. And so collectively, this full moon can bring up themes around power dynamics, and so that can go as far as like in the government, or it can also be like within our relationships. And so really reflecting on like, where are you giving too much of your energy away, and where do you need to kind of reclaim it, and where is there need to be more of an equal give and take and this feeling of mutuality. I'm definitely keeping my eyes on a government shutdown. I do think there's like ego clashing going on, and so under this full moon it'll be interesting to see what happens. Another thing that I think will come up collectively is this theme of like courageous action, and so we'll be seeing more resistance and more people taking action in a way that is aligned with their morals and values. I think there's also going to be this feeling of like a collective release under this lunation, especially those emotions that have to do with like anger and resentment and anything that's kind of been like bubbling under the surface. This is a very like cathartic feeling full moon, and so I'm kind of viewing it as like this fire that's kind of like burning away what no longer serves us and what's no longer authentic. Now, my advice for like you personally and how to work with this energy of this full moon is to release, release. And you can do that through fire or, physical movement. Aries is that fire sign that is ruled by Mars, and so it really thrives on physical movement and physical expression. And so you could do that through like dance and like, dancing around your home or, getting outside or just doing any kind of exercise and any kind of like physical movement that gets that energy out of your body, because you want to move the energy out. So you could also like physically write down those things that you're wanting to release, and you could burn that piece of paper as a symbol of release. My second piece of advice in working with this full moon energy is to get honest with yourself and be real with yourself, because with all of this Scorpio energy, it doesn't really tolerate denial. So if you've been keeping something buried, or if there's something that you've been trying to keep hidden, this full moon in Aries is really kind of going to be shining a light on it. So you could journal or meditate or, just have that hard conversation that you may have been avoiding. You could also take some time to reflect on your passions and those things that you feel passionately about, because again, those are helping to kind of guide you back to your authentic self. And then my third piece of advice is to act with integrity, because this is not about proving yourself or, acting impulsively, but it's about taking action that is rooted in like your authentic truth. Asking yourself like, does this action or decision really reflect who I truly am? And, if the answer is no, then maybe, take some time to self-reflect. And if the answer is yes, then, maybe it's time to move forward. Also, actually, another piece of advice is to pay attention to your triggers and your emotional reactions and your projections, because that is your shadow trying to make itself known. And again, when we can, learn to accept that our shadow is just a part of ourselves, that helps us to be a fully integrated human. This full moon in Aries is asking us to really reclaim ourselves unapologetically and courageously and authentically. And so it might feel uncomfortable and it might involve letting something go that we've been clinging to for a long time. But remember that Aries energy is all about choosing yourself and, moving forward in an authentic way. And so if this message resonated with you at all, then be sure to like and subscribe down below and share it with some of your astrology loving friends, because that would really help me out. And let me know where this full moon is happening for you, and maybe let me know what it's illuminating for you. And yeah, I think that is all I've got to say for now. So thanks for watching, and until next time, love you, bye!